Happy solstice, summer solstice. Today is the day where you have an opportunity through this alignment of the planets during this summer solstice, where your access to your true self, your highest self, is much bigger, amplified. And you can use this as an opportunity to become clear about what it is that you would like to let go of, what unhealthy patterns would you like to let go of, and what would you like to replace that with. Well, I'm going to focus on this pattern of, as a woman, living in a system, in a patriarchal system, where we have been conditioned to live our life through a man. We've come a long way already. Women are independent. They're making their own living. They're, voting. They are owning their own property. They are independent. However, on an emotional level, and a lot of women are not independent yet, right? A lot of women are not yet, because the whole social structure is that you're still, to be safe in this world and to have status in this world, a lot of women still equate that with being married, being with a man, being dependent on their level of wealth, actually, because women stay home and raise the children, and they are dependent on the man bringing in, being the breadwinner and creating the home or the empire. And there is, I'm going to go deep to this level of the emotional attachment to this pattern. The emotional attachment to the pattern that somehow as a woman you can only be fulfilled if you are living your life in some way through a man. If you have a man by your side. If a man sanctions you. This is such an ingrained pattern that is detrimental when you are still attracting men or a man into your life who is not reflecting back to you your highest potential, your highest self-honoring. If you've attracted a man into your life who is reflecting back to you not being completely committed to your higher self, then that is going to hurt, because that man is going to have something going on why he cannot be committed to you fully. And if you are unconsciously making your fulfillment dependent on the man that you love being fully committed to you, and he cannot do that yet because he's actually reflecting back to you that you're not doing that yet yourself, but you're unwilling to emotionally let him go because this tie, this belief is so strong that somehow you need this man to be fulfilled, or you need this man to be in your life, to be yours. Now you've got this catch-22. There's no way to get out of it, and you're stuck in this place of illusion, really, because it is an illusion that you are dependent on anyone else. You don't need anyone to be thriving in your life and feeling completely fulfilled in your life. This doesn't mean that you cannot have a wonderful relationship, but it means that you're not going to be projecting your love onto someone who is not ready to be fully there for you. So this recording and this process that I'm going to go into in a moment and that I'm sharing with you is really an opportunity to look at our unconscious beliefs. What are the issues that we're still holding on to? What are the patterns that we're still seeing repeat themselves in our life? The emotions, the feeling of not being completely in the flow. What are they? And trace it back to its origin. We're going to go to the core here. Trace it back. What is it? What is it? And then when you have it, when you go to the core of it, then you can release it. Then you can let it go. We need to become conscious here, and we need to go deep. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to go very deep. I'm going to take you into the core of my pain, and I'm inviting you to go into the core of your pain. And what I mean with that is become still, feel where the strongest emotion is. If you have an issue with anyone that keeps coming up, a relationship issue, doesn't have to be with a romantic partner, it can be in any kind of relationship where you feel that you are not really in your truth, you're not really being seen in your truth, they are not really reflecting back to you your highest and best. So there's some kind of turmoil, some kind of manipulation, some kind of negativity projected onto you. Then I want you to feel that feeling right now. Go into it, feel it. It'll be uncomfortable, but feel it. And then just be with it for a moment. And then ask yourself, and you can kind of pretend you're looking down at your feet, okay? Actually let your head hang down. Just look down and then just ask yourself, when have I felt like this before? And as I asked myself that question, I realized that this was pretty much the feeling that was predominant in my childhood. I could feel this level of disharmony between my parents almost all the time. When it was not there, when there was harmony and a sense of lightness and real moment-to-moment enchantment, I almost didn't trust it because it was so different to what was there usually. On the surface, everything was lovely, but beneath it, there was a level of just a lot of tension, passive aggressiveness, a lot of unspoken truth. Oh my gosh, so much of it. So that was the environment and the relationship that I was role modeled. So then, it makes perfect sense that I would be carrying that with me and somehow equating that with love, equating that with being home. Because there was a lot of love, right? And there was a lot of dependency too. I mean, I was dependent on my mother for her nurturing. So this kind of not speaking your truth, there being a lot of passive aggressiveness, that was sort of underlying the love that I was receiving and the admiration that I had for my father. So my love and my admiration, my love for my nurturing mother and my admiration for my wonderful, charismatic father, that was together in a bundle in my consciousness with this underlying passive aggressiveness. That was that was what I was role modeled. So this is at the core of what I'm dealing with now, which is no surprise, because until we consciously deal with it on that level, what we want to let go of, our old patterning, it's going to keep repeating itself, and it's going to keep coming back to us in our life. This is the universe or God, whatever you call that omnipotent power, talking to us and saying, hey, guess what? You haven't let this go yet, but here's an opportunity. Here's a person who's going to reflect this back to you, and you can heal this now. Okay, so where I'm at in this healing process of this is to go to the core of it, which I've shown you, and I'm inviting you to do this too, and to bring it up into consciousness, and then to create an imaginary meeting place, like a campfire, with this person from the past. In this case, it's my mother and my father and their relationship. And just sit there. Know that you're safe. Know that you are protected. Know that even though maybe as a child you weren't able to say anything about this, or maybe you tried but you were shut down, which was the case which happened to me. But now you are safe, and you can bring in an enlightened mentor even, or a guardian angel or an archangel to help you to bring in your guides, bring in the wisdom, the consciousness, bring in Jesus, bring in Yogananda, bring in the masters, bring in Buddha. Whoever you resonate with, bring them in, bring their consciousness in. As I do that, I feel myself softening. I feel my tears welling up. I feel an inner release that's happening, a healing. This is what healing feels like, when you soften. Compassion is here. Compassion for my mother, who role modeled me this unhealthy way because she couldn't step out of it. She did. She tried. I mean, she worked at it in her way, but it was still there was still a lot of argument. That was in the 70s, 80s. There was still a lot of argument, and hence a lot of defensiveness, from my father. There was a lot of sort of inner battling going on. Now, all these years later, we're at a place in consciousness where we are ready to handle these issues in a more evolved way. This argument is not really going to help us, because it's still that low energy of blaming someone else for it, and somehow feeling that if they just tell you that you're right, everything's going to be fine. But that's not how it works. This is not about being right or wrong. This is about being self-effacing and finding where this corruption is inside of you, where this wrong pattern, this pattern that's not in harmony with who you truly are, your true self, is running you, and to go deep into that place and to actually let it go through forgiveness, through compassion, through love. And what I have to say to my mother at this campfire is, I loved you so much that I didn't want to let go of this pattern. Or maybe that's not true. I didn't know that I could let go of this pattern. I didn't have a way of letting go of this pattern. I feared that I would maybe lose you. If I would have been where I am now, I would have said, Mom, you cannot play these patterns with me, this control. Through all your love, through your sweetness, you're controlling me, and you're weaving me into your manipulation. And I would have stood by her, not by my father. I would have said to her, Mom, you're the most amazing woman in the world. You have to leave him so that he sees what he will lose. He doesn't recognize who you are because you're not honoring yourself. You're just letting him get away with everything. I mean, you do everything for him. You create the most incredible home. You create the most incredible meals. You edit his work, his scientific work, his applications to go on leave, to go do these research trips. I mean, that's all you. You are his partner. You are fully committed. You are absolutely exquisite. And by you not stepping away, by you not giving him an ultimatum and saying it's either me and you're loyal with me or it's I'm out, because you never did that, because you never had that strength and that belief in yourself. And I'm not blaming you, I'm just saying that's where times were at, that's where you were at, because you never did that. You didn't make him grow. He didn't grow. He just stayed in his comfort zone. Oh, I can have everyone. I can just have my wife and she does everything for me and I can rely on that, and I can have a lover too. Yay. The humiliation that you endured. Oh my God. Oh my God. And then you didn't want to be an angry person, so you ate all this anger inside and got sick. My poor mother. And I would wrap my love around her, and and I know it's not all my father's fault. They were playing together. They were doing this together. It's not about being right or wrong. It's not about one person being at fault. This is about becoming adult about the patterns that you're playing, and becoming adult about the relationships that you have to clean up, and drawing lines and drawing healthy boundaries, having healthy boundaries, and actually respecting the people that you say you love, respecting them with clear contracts, not using someone because of their weakness, because they let you, because they're so afraid that you're going to leave, that they do anything for you and they allow you to be anything. I want to say a word to the men here. If you're with a woman, or you have any kind of relationship with a woman who still wants you, but you're not intimate, and you think that's okay, and you think they're okay with it, but you know that they still want you, it's not okay. You are using them. You are using their weakness, that they are still part of this patriarchal pattern where they haven't let you go because they are projecting their love onto you. And if you have any true respect for this person and you truly love them, then you will have a clear communication with them, and firstly with yourself, and you will see where you are still in a muddled up contract, and you will clean that up, because you're not serving her. That is not love. That is using someone. And it doesn't actually make you available for any other relationship. It only makes you available for a relationship with another woman who is okay with that kind of dealing. And it's unhealthy, and it keeps the pattern alive. It keeps this old, unhealthy pattern of disrespect alive. So this is an appeal to women to know your worth, and to stand up for your worth, and to cut the cords. And going back into my own process and into the campfire with my mother and with my father. Everything that I just said was basically said to my father. But it's also said to any man out there who knows that they're doing this and they just don't want to believe it. Oh, no, I'm not doing that. Yes, you are. You are. And why this anger that I still have is what is still keeping me kind of tied to it, you see. This anger that I'm even projecting onto my father right now is keeping me tied to it, that I'm projecting or that I'm feeling towards someone in my own life who is doing this is keeping me tied to it. So what you do when you're tied to emotion is you need to find the source of this within yourself. And I have to ask myself, why am I angry? Where am I angry at myself? Where have I done this myself? And I've actually already explored this. This is all what my book is about, Breaking Out Gently. It's about this. It's about this topic, essentially. My anger goes back to me not having sided with my sisters, with my sisterhood, me having sided with the man, because I didn't want to be weak. And at the time, I felt that my mother was weaker than my father, because my father would become aloof and say that she became hysterical, and so whenever she was raising her voice or, telling him that he was doing something, which was she was probably right about. And I didn't want to be hysterical. I wanted to be cool. So I became more like him. And by doing that, I disengaged with my truth as a woman. And it took me a very long time to acknowledge that and to have the need. The need became so strong. This was years later that I actually opened myself up in a group of women and started to heal this and soften this and get to the core. And for me to go all the way to the core and heal this and to release this, hopefully once and for all now, I have to come to forgiveness. And I have to forgive myself for having not been further evolved back then as a teenager, for not having been more enlightened, more aware. And I have to forgive myself for all the acts that I have done where I hurt other women by staying in the role of the woman who will be the number one in the man's eye. By giving up my true power, which is being a woman, and that is supported, that power that is healthy power I'm talking about, creative power, life force energy flowing through me expressing my true self. That stays alive for women when they are in community with women. We, in a healthy community, in a loving, not backstabbing community, but a loving community, we nurture each other, and this is how we heal. And we have to learn that again. And this is actually what my Bliss Key is so much about. The collective is so much about this feminine energy, and it's men are so welcome too, of course, right? We want the men, we love the men, and it's about really coming into a collective feminine, trusting energy. Being with women who you can trust, because they wouldn't steal the man from you. See, the stealing men from each other became sort of a trophy, a sign almost. No, Daisy, shh, Daisy, come here. It became a way. It became a sign for us that we're strong, that we have power, that we're number one. We have to be the one in the man's eye. We have to be the only one, right? So that's why you see men, women surrounded by men, but there's only one woman, because they need to be number one. They are fully playing their part in this patriarchy. And there's probably not a lot of trust that they have towards women. And it depletes us. And it's not sustainable. And it's not healthy, and it's not who we are, and it's not who we are meant to be. So I am now forgiving myself. This is very emotional for me, and I realize that I have to ask for forgiveness to all the women in my life who I have wronged, because I was a seductress. I played that part. It gave me a lot of sense of power, and it was like a game. And I had a lot of pent-up anger inside myself for being overlooked, for being the second born, for being not really that important in the family, for just running along. I had a lot of shame from the abuse that I received, that I write about in my book. So when I saw how much power I had over men when I was young teenager, I made a game out of it. It became like a sport. I would go out and just go dancing, just dance all night, drink water, dance all night, and just pick out the cutest guy that I would want to be, dancing for, and then just play my little cat and mouse game and never give myself away. So I kept my power. And it was really fun and but very isolated. I didn't have any girlfriends really at that time that were nurturing me truly. I was getting this pseudo-nurturing through feeling my power, my sexual power, without giving myself away, which was smart. But then when you grow up and you enter into relationships and you fall in love and you give yourself away completely, and you still have this pattern running unconsciously, now you're in trouble. Because now the old disconnect from your own true feminine power and your sisterhood, when that connection is not established, and there's mistrust, there's hurt, now you become dependent on the man emotionally. Yeah. And that we need to change. We can be in a much better relationship when we're not emotionally dependent on the other person, but if it's a moment-to-moment discovery and creation that you're in, that is my goal. And so, yes, I dig deep like I do, and I invite you to do the same. And if you need help with this, if you need guidance with this, come and join us at Bliss Keys. in the Bliss Keys Collective at blisskeys.com. Come and join us and either have one-on-one work or join the membership and open up, learn how to go so deep, learn how to strengthen your nervous system to prepare yourself for the amazingness that happens in your life and that you are to live when you align yourself with where you're truly meant to be in relationship with yourself. And right now, the relationship where we need to be is in harmony with our feminine self and with our sisters and with our sisterhood. And from there comes the readiness to truly be in amazing relationships, with a lover, with a man, if we're so inclined. Okay, so there's one other person I need to forgive, apart from myself, and apart from asking for forgiveness from all these women. And I feel I'm receiving that. I feel I'm receiving that forgiveness, because this level of consciousness unites us as women. This level of vulnerability and admitting to our own shadow unites us, it heals us. I'm sorry. I am sorry. And now who I need to forgive is my father. This is what my book is about too, this relationship to the father, who you've kowtowed to, you try to impress, try to get his love, adapted yourself to his needs, adapted yourself to what would make him recognize you, acknowledge you. I would have conversations with my father that were so intellectual because I knew that that is what he would like. He would actually pay attention then. And so I became very, very good at language and at communicating. But not because it was what I wanted to communicate, but because I knew that's what would get his attention. And over the years, I lost myself. Not completely, thank God, I always came back to my truth, but years would go by and I would be very unconscious, searching. I didn't lose myself, I was actually always true to myself, but there was an element of not really knowing that my truth is all I need to listen to. That really kicked in when my sister was diagnosed with cancer in 2003, and then my mother was diagnosed with cancer in 2006. And when my mother was diagnosed, my truth kicked back in fully, because now I was in survival mode. Now I realized, oh my God, something is happening in this lineage to my sisters, to my mother, to my women, to my sisterhood. What is going on in my sisterhood? This is the first time I just realized this, that this is what I realized back then. What is going on in my sisterhood? And I knew there was some disease in my sisterhood, and I was going to find out what it was. And I started with journey work, and I became a practitioner, and it changed my life. It was the most profound thing I could have ever done for myself, because I started to heal. I started to unravel all of these old patternings. And after a few years of doing this all the time, every week, having processes, I realized that I was in a dynamic in my own marriage where I was running this pattern. where I was not completely in my truth. I was there because I was number one for him, and it was more important for me to have that stability, to have that devotion from a man, that yes, that was more important to me because I hadn't seen that in my parents. That clarity, that commitment was more important to me than me being truthful to myself. And yes, it was meant to be, and yes, he was and is still an amazing man, and yes, we have amazing children, and that was the purpose of that, the overreaching purpose of that. But a few years into doing journey work, I realized I am not happy. I am not really my true self here. And I started to get out in a very careful way, as not to create a war, in a way where I could grow into my own independence financially as well. I needed to learn so much. I mean, I needed to go through so many inner battles and blocks. I didn't even have a nervous system of what it would feel like to be financially not dependent. I couldn't even fathom that because my mother hadn't even role modeled that to me. So that's why it took so long. It took a long time to get out of this amicably. And now being out of it, and already being out of this for a year and a half, I'm still dealing with the same pattern, remnants of it. This is the nature of these deep patterns. They just keep going. And we go deeper and we release them again. And then we evolve and we get higher in consciousness. And then we go deeper into the pattern and we release another layer. And so on the solstice, the summer solstice 2020, I'm releasing another layer of this obstruction. And I'm releasing it with love. And I'm now facing my father and checking in what I need to forgive. I have already forgiven you. I have already forgiven my father, but there's another layer. I realize how unnecessary, really, it is right now, as I feel forgiving energy towards my father, to make ourselves dependent on a man. We're so tied to it emotionally, but really when you're free, when you're looking at this from a place of having forgiven yourself and you're free from the pattern, you're cutting those cords, that you just cut them again. Wow, the release shows how ridiculous this really is. It's ridiculous. We don't need that. As a woman, you have everything inside of you. Woman, you give birth. Do you think you don't have the universe inside of you? Do you really think you need a man to sanctify you, to sanction you, to say you're okay, to be whole? Oh my God, that is such an error. And I cut all remaining cords and cut it and cut it and cut it and let it all go and let it release into the abyss of last night, and release it and release it and release it. And into this new serene space, I arrive in a self-honoring that is of on a new level for me. Wow. Splendid. Splendid, bright energy. Splendid, splendid, splendid. I rejoice with my sisters, who I dedicate this to, my tribe, my soul sisters, and all the men who feel this, all the beautiful souls who feel this, who know they're a part of this tribe, who can feel that this is part of their journey, who are truly here for healing these old patterns, and who will do their part to clean up your part. Honor the women in your life, the ones that you've got hanging on, waiting for you, the ones that you say you love, but you're not truly giving the clean break that they need so that they can come into self-healing. Do your part. Be the love. Be the greatness that you are.